Okay, today we got up to did we do Amarafuna Maravya? We did that there was the Shiloh was made out of stone, rolling by Tanan Hassam. We spoke about the sparks that would go from one altar to the other.
Right.
So Tanan Hassam, which is what is that, like 12 lines from the bottom? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 lines from the bottom. Okay. Thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. And in this chus we're learning, we should have the base of Migdash immediately. So we're learning for a four shleima, for our needs. Father and there's someone else that I'm supposed to say for. No, there was someone else. I'm supposed to mention someone else, and it's skipping my mind. Okay. Tanan Hassam. We learned in a Mishnah. Where is this Mishnah? What's the Vav? In Midas. Mishnayos in Midas. Perek Gimel Mishnah Aleph. It says that Kisha'alu b'nei Agoyla, when, originally what the Mishnah says over there, that in the Bayis Rishon, in the first base of Migdash, the Mizbeach was only 28 Amos by 28 Amos. And then Kisha'alu b'nei Agoyla, by the way, when we said before that the Mizbeach was the area for the fire on the Mizbeach was 20 Amos by 20 Amos. Remember we said that? That would follow this this opinion, this statement here, where the original Mizbeach was only 28 Amos. So if you take in 4 Amos on each side, you're left with the 20 Amos in the center. Now the 4 Amos would be the Yesod, the Seiviv, the Kronos, and the walkway. And then Yesod, Seiviv, Kronos, and walkway. Take off those 4 Amos, I'm left with a square of 20 Amos in the center. We said, oh, that's 20 times the size of the Mizbeach of Moshe, remember, so 20 times 20 was 400 times. Okay, but that was all because we were discussing Shleima's Mizbeach versus Moshe's Mizbeach. Sha'olu b'nei Agoyla, when they came back from Babylonia and they built the second temple, they added 4 Amos to the south side, and they added 4 Amos to the west side. Kamin Gamma, that's a Greek letter. Rashi says is like a alpha beta gamma, right? Rashi says it's like a chaf pshuta. It's like a straight chaf, which means it has it's like an L. That's what. Yeah, it's actually more common than that. It's very, very common when it came to the anointing oils. They used the Greek letter to tell you like how, in what shape it was. Yeah. Yeah. And we learned in Megillah that Torah scroll could be written in Greek. Right? Remember that? So they would use the letter as a symbol. My timer. Why did they add on to the Mizbeach? What was wrong with the Mizbeach 28 by 28? Why did it have to be now 4 Amos on each side, 4 Amos, 4 Amos not on each side. It was 4 Amos and like an L, which made it just a total of an extra 4 Amos. So 28 now became 32. That was an extra 4, 32 by 32. Rav Yosef says, Mishum delay sipik. There wasn't enough room. It wasn't satisfactory. In other words, the area of the Mizbeach wasn't enough for all the sacrifices of the second base of Migdash. Amar Leia Baya says to Rabbi Yosef, Hashta Mikdash Rishon, the Ksiv Be Yehuda Yisrael Ram Kachal Ashel Sfasa Yam Sipik. And so when you speak about the base of Migdash, the first base of Migdash, it says Yehuda and Yisrael were so many, like the sand of the sea, the sand at the edge of the sea. And there were so many Jewish people bringing sacrifices, and over there, the Mizbeach of 28 Amos was satisfactory. Mikdasheni, the Ksiv Be Kol Akol Ke'echad, Arba Riba Leisipik. When it came to the second base of Mikdash, it was only 40,000. Actually, 42,360. But there was only 40,000 approximately. And now you're telling me like Sipik that wasn't the size of the Mizbeach wasn't enough. They had so few people in the second base of Mikdash comparatively to the first base of Mikdash. Amalei, so Rabbi Yosef responds, Hassam, in the first base of Mikdash, the reason why that 28 Amos was enough was because Eish Shel Shemayim Mesiyatan. They had the fire from heaven that burnt the karbanos. It made it consume very fast. Hacha over here, Ein Eish Shel Shemayim Mesiyatan. In the second base of Mikdash, they didn't have the fire from heaven to help. So therefore, they needed more space. There's a bacher in yeshiva that is davening for Damadi, saying Kaddish, and so they light the candles. So they got him a lighter, but it's like a torch. it blows. It's so much like, those lighters. It's like I don't know what it's for. Maybe to light a cigar or something. I don't know. Anyway, when he lights the candle, it burns like a hole in the wax, and the candle goes on, but then afterwards all the wax is on the side, just burns like the thing around, and then the candle goes out. You need an old-fashioned match or a lighter. Anyway, over here they had this torch from heaven that came down and consumed the sacrifices, so that was enough room. But in the second base of Mikdash, they had the old-fashioned fire. It was burning it. That didn't satisfy. They need an extra 4 amos by 4 amos, 32 amos in total. Kiyasa Rabin. When Rabin came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, yesterday we had Kisalak Rabin, right? Now we have Kiyasa Rabin. When Rabin came to Bavel, Amar, he said, Reb Shimon Pasim Shum Bar Kapara. He said, in the name of Reb Shimon Pazi, in the name of Bar Kapara, who was one of the Tanoim, he said, Shitin Eisifu. What they really did when they were adding on that extra southwest corner of 4 amos by 4 amos, they added the Shitin. The Shitin were the like this channel that the wine and the water would go down. When they would pour the libations, so it would go down under the altar. So what they wanted to do was they wanted to include the Shitin under the actual area of the Mizbeach. See, originally, what they would do is the Shitin were on the side. Rashi writes it was like a pit on the side of the Mizbeach. When they would pour the wine and the oil on the Mizbeach, it would roll down the side, it would roll onto the floor, or onto the side, then roll off onto the floor, and then from the floor it would go into the pit. It says now, when they extended an extra 4 amos, it included that, and they had to make a hole through so that it should go straight through, should be able to go into the Shitin. Originally, in the first base of Mikdash, they understood Mizbeach Adama to alter from dirt. It had to be completely solid from dirt. You can't have any hole in it. But in the second base of Mikdash Savar, they understood Shasiya Ka'achila, that drinking is like eating. Just like the Mizbeach is supposed to consume the flesh. So also the wine and the water that's put on the Mizbeach is supposed to go into the Mizbeach, not off the side. My Mizbeach Adama. So then what does it mean that it's supposed to be Adama, it's supposed to be solid? Shehu Mechuber Ba'adama, it has to be on the ground. Can't be on top of, how do they translate keeping? Arches. Leil Gabi Mechilas are on top of tunnels. Apparently, we're not concerned about the Shitin, but we are concerned about tunnels. And guess because the Shitin maybe was for the purpose of the Mizbeach itself. So that was different. If it would be on top of tunnels, that would be like a subway system going under the Mizbeach. That they didn't want. But that wasn't allowed. But the Shitin were part of the Mizbeach, was part of like for the purpose of the Mizbeach. Does that make sense? Is that how they explain it there? Yeah. Or else we're left with the same problem. Uh-huh.
So, didn't we learn that the Mizbeach on the top had to be solid and perfectly
Yeah.
smooth?
You're saying, what about those holes? That wouldn't be solid and smooth. It had holes in it. Maybe the smoothness meant along the edges. Maybe.
Because it must have been someplace then that the whatever went in those holes went. All right.
Yeah. I'm seeing now. Taisva says that the Bar Shel Shitin was not considered a mechila, even the Tzarech Mizbeach. You see that top Taisva? It's a one-line Taisva. That
Mm-hmm.
answers that question. I guess the smooth part, you're going to have to answer that it was only the edges. This is the Kappa Mizbeach. That's not the Mizbeach in the Beis Hamikdash. That's the Mizbeach in the tabernacle. Yeah. You see that top Taisvas? Okay. Amar Rabbi Yosef. This is a very interesting Gemara. Rashi explains that Rabbi Yosef comes in and he gives a reason why the second Beis Hamikdash, why the altar was bigger, why the Mizbeach was larger. Now, the problem is that Rabbi Yosef already gave us a reason. Rabbi Yosef on the page before, on the last Amud, Rabbi Yosef says that Eishel Shemayim Meseyatan. He said it lay sipik. It didn't have enough room. The second base of Migdash, because it didn't have the fire from heaven. Comes along Rabbi Yosef and says, Lav Haina Taima, Lav Haina Detanya, isn't this because we have a brisa? Why was it bigger? Because of the brisa it says Vayachin. In other words, the brisa quotes a pasuk that in the second base of Migdash it says Vayachino as Mizbeach al Machainosov. They prepared the Mizbeach on its base, on its foundation. Shehigiu l'seif midaisav, that the Anshe Knesset Gdaila, they were able to measure exactly where it's really supposed to be, exactly. And to Shlomo, he didn't have it exact. So it was kosher, of course, but it wasn't like to the edges of where it was supposed to be. So now Rashi explains, one second, Rabbi Yosef before said a different reason. He said that it wasn't large enough, not because they learned, they figured it out better, because they didn't have enough room. So Rashi explains that Rabbi Yosef got sick and he forgot his learning. And his second pshat is because he forgot what he had said earlier. No, no. Who are you thinking of that fasted? Someone that fasted to forget, that was Reb Zera. Reb Zera fasted when he went to Eretz Yisrael. Reb Yosef was sick and he forgot his learning. Which one did he teach first? No. Okay. So the Gemara says the Anshe Knesset didn't have it exact. So it says, one second, Vaksiv Hakol B'Ksav Miyad Hashem Ala Yeheskel. This is a pasuk in Divrei Yamim, which is referring to David HaMelech telling Shlomo exactly where what the blueprint of the Beis Hamikdash is supposed to be. It says that it was all written to me from the hand of Hashem, and I understood it from the prophets. One second. Now you're telling me that they didn't have it exact, that they only had it from in the time of the second Beis Hamikdash. They got it exact. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rather, Rabbi Yosef says doesn't mean that Shlomo didn't have it. Krash kach v'darash. What happened was in the time of David HaMelech, they understood this pasuk a certain way, and they understood it later a different way. It says Vayomer David. The pasuk says David says Zehu Beis Hashem Alikim v'zem Mizbeach La'oila L'Yisrael. This is the house of Hashem, the God, and this is the altar of the elevation offerings for Israel. So what happened just here is that we have a hekesh, we have a comparison. Ki bias, it's going to be exactly like the house. Ma bias shishimama, just like the house, which means the sanctuary, was 60 amas. If you take into calculation that it was 20 amas of the 20 amas of the Kodesh HaKodashim, right? And 30 amas of the Heichal, plus 10 amas of the Ulam, you're going to be left with 60. That's 60, total of 60, right? The Ulam was 10 amas, I think. So the house was 60 amas. So the house is 60 amas. So ma bayas shishim amma, af mizbeach shishim amma. Also the mizbeach is 60 amas. Now, it can't be that it's really 60 amas. It means that you have an area of 60 amas of where it could be. Where says Bishlam Abayas, how did they know exactly where to make the 60 amas? It says that we understand when they came back by the second base of Migdash, they wanted to make the base of Migdash, and they see the foundation of it was destroyed, right? But they knew where it was because they could see Minkar Tzurase. They could look at the foundation and they could tell where the house used to be, and they were able to build it back according to where it was supposed to be when it came to the house. But when it came to the Mizbeach, how did they know exactly where the Mizbeach was supposed to be? Rabbi Lazar says, this is Rabbi Lazar ben Padas, says, Ro Mizbeach Bani, they had a vision of the Mizbeach built, Michal Saragadol, I made a makar of love. And the angel, Michal, was doing sacrifices on it. Who had that vision? The prophets that were there. They saw the ashes of Yitzchak around that place. Now, Yitzchak didn't have ashes. Yitzchak was survived the Akedah. What does it mean, the ashes of Yitzchak? Mashah says that it's referring to the ayel that was in place of Yitzchak. The ashes were still there. It was in the vision. The Riyam. Shmuel bar Nachmani Amar, Mikol Habayis Kulei Richa Riach Keteiros. From the entire house, they were able to smell the scent of the incense. But from the place of Mizbeach, Riach Riach Barim, it smelled like a barbecue. Amar Rabba Barbachanam Rabbi Yechanan Shleisha Nevi'im Malo Imam and Agayla. There were 3 prophets that came up from the exile. These prophets were referring to Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi. Echad She'ed Lem Al Mizbeach. One of them testified where the Mizbeach was supposed to be, that they had up to 60 amas to build it. Echad She'ed Lem Al Makom Mizbeach. One of them told them where it's supposed to be. So now the first one said how big it could be. Second one said where it's going to be. The other one, the third one said that they're allowed to bring the sacrifices even though the temple wasn't built yet. They were able to start sacrificing before it was built. Yeah. Where do they quote that from? Yeah, right. Hillel is telling me that in the art scroll they have a note where it says that the Rambam says that the same place where Adam built his Mizbeach, Noach built the Mizbeach, that's the same place where Avram did the Akedah, and that's where we have the Mizbeach. Okay. Masnisa Tana, there was a brisa that taught Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Eimer. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says, as we had just said it before, in the name of Rabbi Barbachan and the name of Rabbi Yechanan. Now we're going back to a brisa. It says, Shleisha Nevi'im Malo Imam min Agayla. There were 3 prophets that came up from the exile. Echad She'elem al Mizbeach. One of them testified that the Mizbeach could be up to 60 amas, Val Makam Mizbeach, and also where it was going to be. So in other words, now what we just did different is we put together those two prophecies. The prophecy of the Mizbeach, how big it could be, and the prophecy of where it should be, was all by one of the prophets. Now that leaves us with one extra. The second one taught us that you're allowed to bring the sacrifice even before the temple is built. The other one said that the script of the Torah scroll was now going to switch from what was the old one? They used to write in Ivris, and they switched it to Ashuris. Used to write in like the old script used to be maybe Sanskrit or something, and now they switched it to writing into Ashuris, which is the Assyrian letters, which is the letters that we have today. We learned this in Sanhedrin. You remember that? Yeah, we said when we learned in Sanhedrin, we said that from Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev, that the new script is the one that's more fitting for the lights of Hashem to come into it. Every letter has a certain shape, and the old script, the heavens and the earth didn't match perfectly. So as we get closer to the time of Mashiach, so there's more of a bond between the Ruchnius and the Gashmius. Originally, before Matan Torah, there was a decree that the heavens don't come down, right? And the earth doesn't go up. And so it didn't match perfectly. It was a separation. As we get closer to Mashiach, so the Ruchnius fits more perfectly with the Gashmius, and the letters themselves switched. We switched the fonts so that it fits better.
I wonder this theory, what the shape was, the letters of creation.
Yeah. So I think he might discuss that. I didn't see it inside, but my friend Avi Tzvibel, if you know him, he's told me that this is from Reb Levi Yitzchak. He might say that it was the original letters. The Ashuris would be the, and then they stopped using it, and then they brought it back. That may be the pshat.
You say Avi wrote a book on this?
No, he gave a lecture once in the Shul Bel Harbor, and this was his how he explained it. Yeah, in the days of Ezra. Yeah. The beginning of the second temple. Taner Rabbanan, Taner Raisa, Keren, the Kevesh, V'Yisoid, V'Ribua. You have over here the horns of the Mizbeach, the ramp of the Mizbeach, the foundation of the Mizbeach, and the square that the Mizbeach needs to be square, like your tefillah needs to be square. Ma'akven, that's essential to the Mizbeach. If it's not like that, then it will invalidate the altar. Midas arka, midas rachma, midas kamase, ma'akven. However, its length and its width, that will not invalidate. It could be a bigger size or smaller size. As we saw in the Mishkan, it was one size. In the first base of English, it was another size. And in the second base of English, it was even larger. Minani mili. How do we know that these things are ma'akiv? Amar Rav Huna, that these are essential. Huna says, Amar Kra Hamizbeach. It says regarding each of those four things. When it says about the corners, it says Karnei Samizbeach. Speaks about the kevesh, it uses the word hamizbeach, the altar. Speaks about the foundation, it says hamizbeach. And it speaks about the square, that it says that it uses this word hamizbeach. So now we have a rule, kol makif shnemer hamizbeach la'akev. Whenever it says the word mizbeach, it's ma'akev. So we have those four things where it says it. Alamiyata kiyur l'rebi, l'rabi, rebi. V'seivev l'rabi Yosef l'rabi Yehuda chinami de ma'akev. Now, when we say over here kiyur, this could throw you off a little bit, because we learned about the kiyar, that the kiyar was a vessel that was used for washing the hands, but that's not what it means here. Over here it means the design that went around the Mizbeach. There was a design under the Seiviv up until the midway point. You see, the Seiviv was 6 amas high. Let's say the Mizbeach was 10 amas, according to that one opinion that we learned yesterday, I think Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Yossi. So the Mizbeach was 10 amas tall, 6 amas up, was the Seiviv. So 1 amma down from the Seiviv was going to be the red line. Was going to be the red line. What was going to be on the Mizbeach and the Beis Hamikdash, but there was a line that that gave the halfway mark. But in between that line and the Seiviv was a decorations, was like a trimming, like a decoration. That's called Kiyor. Kiyor means the decorations. And the Seiviv, according to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Achinami de Ma'akiv. Over there it says the word Mizbeach. It says HaMizbeach, so it should be Ma'akiv. The Ksiv and Asata Isa Tachas Karkov HaMizbeach Mamata. It says you put it under the Karkov, or the Mizbeach below. V'tanya is a Karkov. What is the Karkov? Rabbi Yaimer Zakir. Rabbi says that's a decoration. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda is a Seiviv. Rabbi Yehuda says it's the Seiviv. So we see it says Tachas Karkov HaMizbeach. So the Karkov, whatever the Karkov is going to be Ma'akiv because it has the word Mizbeach there. Gemara says, you're right, it is Ma'akiv, the Tanya. We have a Brisa. Brisa says that there was a Kayin Gadol that was a Tzeduki, and he poured the water on Sukkot instead of pouring it on Mizbeach, poured it on his feet, like he's washing his feet. And everyone pelted him with their Sregim. Rashi adds in that they had rocks as well. So says the corner of the Mizbeach was chipped. They viewed bull. They took a fistful shel melach samu and they sealed it up. After they sealed it up, it wasn't kosher for avodah. Ella shleir Mizbeach pagam. It just shouldn't look like it was. No, it shouldn't look like it needed construction. And the next explanation is Kol Mizbeach she'ein like Karen v'kevesh v'seid ribu is puzzle. Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Amarfa Seiviv, and Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda adds in that the Seiviv also, if the Mizbeach is missing the Seiviv, it's going to be puzzle. So you see from Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda's what he adds in here is that if it says the word Mizbeach, it's going to mean it's going to be puzzle if it doesn't have it. Tanu Rabbanan taught in a Brisa is Karkov. What is this Karkov? Now here, Karkov is going to be something slightly different than what we were just explaining before. No, only the things that were listed in the Torah with the word Mizbeach, HaMizbeach, the altar. Then that would be essential. The Brisa says, what's the Karkov? It says it starts to describe it's a place bein keren lekeren, between the corners. Makom hilach raglei kainim amma. Between the corners, a place, an amma for the kainim to walk. Now, between the corners, a place for the kainim to walk would mean that when they got to the corner, they would have to jump over the corner and to the next place, but they couldn't walk through the corner because the corner was there. You had to jump over the towers, and this would be like mamish at the edge. The Gemara says, "Atu akayinim ben karen lekaren abeazli." Is that how they walked? They walked by the corners, and then they would get to the corner. They would have to jump over it. Ela ema. What we're going to need to do over here is we're going to have to say that the translation of this brisa where it says karkov, what is it? It's there are corners. Makaim hilach raglei akayinim. Amma. It's both the corners and the place of the Kainim to walk. When it asks, Vaksiv, it says that they made this netting, a copper netting. Tachas karkuvay malmata ad chatzei, under the karkuv, up until the halfway point of the Mizbeach. We were talking before about the Seiviv. If karkuv is the Seiviv, under the Seiviv they had this copper lace. It was like a fishnet. That went around. It was a decoration that went around. Amar Rav Nachman said, Rav Nachman Yitzchak, there were two karkovs, chad lenoi. One surrounded the mizbech like a belt, with like a net, and the chad lekainim blei nishtarkov, and one was up on the top so that the kainim shouldn't slip. That groove in the ground made it that it was like a tiny wall, made that the kainim shouldn't slip. We said that the size of the mizbeach is not ma'akiv. It said it could be 28 amas, it could be 5 amas, it could be 60 amas, right? Amar Rabbi Mani Says it doesn't matter the size of the mizbeach, but it can't be smaller than the mizbeach that Moshe made, which was either 5 amas or 10 by 10, depending on which opinion we went by yesterday. The kama, how big is the mizbeach that Moshe made? Rabbi Yosef ama. He says it's just 1 ama. Machkola, they laughed at him. It says chamish amas oirich, chamish amas reichav, rebuy mizbeach. It says it's 5 amas long, 5 amas wide. It should be a square. Remember, we learned that maybe the square, this 5 is counted from the center. It wasn't so clear. Amalei Abaya answers for Rabbi Yosef. He says, Dilma makam arocha kamar mar. Maybe what the master is referring to is the place where the fire was. That was only 1 amma. We explained that yesterday. Amalei, Rabbi Yosef says to Abaya, Mar, master, the Gavar Rabbahu, Yadamai Kamina. He knows what I mean. A great person knows what I mean. Kari Alayu, but Rabbi Yosef says regarding the other people in the yeshiva that laughed, it says, B'nei Keturah, they're the children of Keturah. They're not like the children of Yitzchak and Yaakov. It reminds me of that the people that were talking about the Yichas by the Satmar Rav. And by the Pelish Chassidim, Yichas is very important, the lineage. They talk about, I'm a descendant of this Rebbe, I'm a descendant of that Rebbe. So someone said, I'm a descendant of Avraham Avinu. So the Satmar Rav says, from which wife? So here he says, B'nei Keturah, the descendants of Keturah. B'nei Achosei de Rabbi Tarfon, have Yosvi Kami de Rabbi Tarfon. The nephews of Reb Tarfon, Reb Tarfon's sister's children, were sitting in front of Reb Tarfon. Pasach, the Yomar, Reb Tarfon begins to teach. He says, "V'Yosef Avram v'Yikach Isha Shema Yochni." Avram took a woman, took another wife, and her name was Yochni. Amrilei Keturah Ksiv. It says no. It says Keturah. Kari Aleyain. Reb Tarfon says about them B'nei Keturah. You don't know how to say anything in halacha. You just know the psukim. You're B'nei Keturah.
Usually they go by the father's name. They'll say.
Maybe because Reb Tarfon was so great. Maybe the father wasn't significant. Maybe they spoke about themselves as what their real lineage was. Commentary here in the back of my Gemara. It says, why were they called B'nei Keturah? How'd that come about? Just because Rabbi Yosef, he said that the Mizbech is one amma. That's the main part of the Mizbech. They said, no, the Mizbech is 5 ammas, which means that 4 of the ammas of the Mizbech were not significant. The only thing that was significant was the 1 amma, that's the place of the fire. This is similar to the children of Avram. Here he's comparing it to that there was Yishmael, and then there was the Keturah, which was much more than Avram, much more than Yishmael. So they said, we called them B'nei Keturah because there were many more children of Keturah than there was of Yishmael. And so it depends if you want to follow the main one you want to follow all the extras. If you take the extras as the main thing, then they call them B'nei Keturah. Keep shot. Amar Abaya. Oh, this is a different Abaya. Amar Abaya Barhuna, Amar Rav Chama Bar Gurion, Amar Rav Chama Bar Gurion. Chama Bar Gurion, the Gemara tells us had another name, I think. Amar Chama Bar Gurion Gazir. Okay, Amar Rav Chama Bar Gurion. Gazirin, the pieces of wood that Moshe Rabbeinu used when at the on the altar, Shasa Moshe Arkan Amma V'Rachban Amma. They were long one amma and they were wide an amma. Even kemacha kodesh sa, they were thick like a beam that they use to smooth off the measurements. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Yirmiyah says that those firewood that Moshe Rabbeinu used, that was amma geduma. It was a smaller amma. They didn't want it to stick over the sides. Geduma means it's like cut off at the truncated. Is that a word that they use there? What word do they use for that? Short amma. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef says, "Lav haina detanya." How could you say that it was a shorter amma? Doesn't the Brisa say al eitzim asher leishel mizbeach? This teaches us shleyu eitzim yetzim min mizbeach klum. They could do it exact. Didn't have to be shorter. Oh, that means 5 tvachim. So he says that it only needs to be, it could be exactly the size. It doesn't need to be shorter than that. Okay. Tanan Hassam. We learned over there. Where's the over there? This is in Midas also, Perek Gimel. Mishnah Gimel. What did we have before? Also Perek Gimel. That was one. Yeah, okay.
And this is referring to the wood that he burned?
Yeah. Because he only had one amma to space to burn it. Okay. The Mishnah says that there was a ramp that went to the south of the altar, and it was 32 amas long. Al Reichav Sheish Esrei, and it was 16 amas wide. How do we know this? How do we know that the ramp was on the south? That's first of all. When the sacrifices were brought, they were slaughtered on the north. That was the holy sacrifices. Sheyerech batzafin. The foot of the mizbeach should be on the north. Upanav, in the face of the mizbeach, badarim, should be on the south. That means that the ramp would be on the south, and the yerech is like the foot, the leg, that should be on the north. Yerech batzafin upanav batzafin. 1 second. Yeah, the legs are only on the back. Is that how it works? The yerech could be on the same side as the face, the leg. Doesn't have to be, right? The person standing, his yerech is on his back and his front, his leg. Rava says, Rami Gavra Aape. If you put the person down on his face, then his feet are on one side and his head is on the other side. So the mizbeach as well. The feet are on one side and the head is on the other side. The feet are on the north and the head is on the south. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says, that's what you're comparing the mizbeach to? It's a person that's laying flat on his face. Adarabba. Tart's face of Gavra. Why don't you stand up the man that you're talking about and he's facing the north, and what's the problem? And the ramp could be on the north. Amalei, Rava says revuaksiv, it has to be a square. Now, the way Rava is this Rava or Rabba? The way Rava is explaining is that when it says ravua, it means that he's laying down. There's two translations of the word ravua. One means that he's laying down. One means square. So he's saying, no, I have a good source to say that we're looking at the mizbeach like someone laying down, where the head is by the ramp and the feet are over there. Why? Because it says ravua. Ravua is like roiva, is like relations. It means like he's laying down. What are you talking about? We used the word rabu already to tell me that it needed to be a square. So Rava says, Miksiv meruba, does it say square? It doesn't say meruba, it says ravua. Ravua sounds more like that he's laying down. So Abaye sells him taimech. According to you, that you want to say ravua means that he's crouching down or he's laying down. Miksiv ravutz? Ravutz would mean to crouch down. It doesn't say ravutz, it says ravua. It means that it's not supposed to be a circle, it has to be square. Amalei, ravua ksiv de mashmachi mashmachi. The fact that it uses the word ravua, Rav is saying, is coming to tell me two things. Because one is, meruba would tell me that it means a square. Ravutz would tell me that it means that it's like laying down. But it says ravua, which is a mixture of both. It's coming to tell me that it's a square and it's like he's laying down. The Tana that says that the ramp is on the south, he brings it from the following brayso. Tanya Rabbi Yehuda says, quotes the pasuk in Yecheskel, says, Maleseyu pnois kadim. Maleseo is the ramp, is facing the east. Kol pinashat the paina. Anytime you turn from the ramp, lo yela derech yamin lemizrach. When you get to the top of the ramp, you should turn to the right. You should turn to the east. Now, if you're coming from the south towards the north, on the right side is going to be the east. Ve'ema small lemizrach. How do you know? Maybe it means that when you turn, you're supposed to go to the left, and you turn left to the east. It says Leisal Kadaitach. You can't say that because Rami Bar Yecheskel, we have this the Tani Rami Bar Yecheskel. Rami Bar Yecheskel taught Yom She'asa Shleima. There was a pool that Shlomo Melech made in the Beis Hamikdash. It says Ayman al Shnei Maser Amudim Bakar Shleisha Panim Tzvayna Shleisha Panim Yama Shleisha Panim Negva Shleisha Panim Mizracha. There were 12 cattle that the pool was like. These were like images of cattle that were holding this pool. So 12 would mean that there were 3 on each side. So the order of the sides is north, west, south, and east. Because if a person is walking from the north to the south, to the west, and then to the south, then to the east, he's always going to the right. Follow? Counterclockwise is always to the right. If he'd be coming from the south, going to the west, he'd be going to the left. He's coming from the north and he goes to the west, he's going to the right. Gemara says, okay, so that's our source. Our source is from the way that we circled. We gave the order of how the cattle are facing, going around the this pool. So that's our source. That whenever you come to a juncture, you always turn to the right. So that over here, we go to the top of the Zbech, go to the right. That means the right is going to be the east. It says, but that's just coming to tell me how this pool was, how it looked. It's not coming to teach me halachas. Where it says, Im Kain, if that's the case, painim lamali. Why does it have to say painim? It says 3 were facing, 3 were facing. The fact that it's telling me facing is coming to tell me how a person is supposed to turn. Painim also means to turn, as opposed to, and as well as facing. But it's using that word so many times, it's coming to allude that how I'm supposed to turn when I come to a juncture. Okay, let's leave it over here. Rab Tishal, Rab Shimon ben Yossi ben Lakuna. Yeah, see that? It's about 12 lines up, 14 lines up.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day.
Good day.
Okay.